We're four friends with hot takes on food media.
And we're here to review and recap all kinds of food shows in bite-sized seasons.
Plus, virtual potlucks, cooking adventures, and food memes.
Welcome to Pod Appétit Gourmet Takes.
Hi, I'm Amanda.
Hey, it's Justine.
And it's me, Meg. Welcome back to Pod Appétit Gourmet Takes. We are finishing up our season on Sweet Heat with Rick Martinez, a Food 52 YouTube series. Rick brings us recipes built on his favorite flavor profiles, sweet and heat, from his kitchen in Mazatlan, Mexico. So on the menu for today's episode, we are doing once again our potluck episode. So we have all made recipes from the Sweet Heat series. Some of them are a surprise to us, some of them are not, but we will reveal what we have made as we go through the episode. And since we are talking about everything that we cooked, we are going to skip our usual segment of what we've been up to in the kitchen. And we're just going to go ahead and talk about our Sweet Heat recipes. So, Amanda, how about you start us off?
All right. So, talking about bringing back It's a Disaster, Claire. I was trying to do the most recent recipe from Sweet Heat, which was the one bowl chocolate birthday cake.
Oh, was it your birthday?
No, I liked the idea of the cake because it was malted milk ball.
Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah, I just thought it was an interesting thing, and I'll be honest, because I watched a bunch of different Rick videos trying to decide on what I wanted to do. A lot of it was just, to be quite honest, very intimidating. It would be like, okay, because like there was one I was looking at that was like a pound cake that had citrus, which I think like really goes with me with like the whole idea of like, I like the acid side like that we learned in salt, fat, acid, heat, and it was a mandarin pound cake, but then instead of just like the basic, it was also like, and now you have to make your own marmalade. Like there were a lot of things where it was like, here's something I'm like, cool, that looks like something I feel okay with, and then you'd be like, but to spice it up, we're doing this and crazy just like thing that like for Rick looks amazing and simple, and for me is terrifying. Like there was a wedge salad that I was like, okay, I was like, I could do the wedge salad. It looked like a simple dressing, but then he was like, but we're also gonna confit this, and it's just there was a lot.
Oh boy.
Yeah, and it was all vegetarian, and I like that one. I was kind of excited about because I thought, oh, it could be something vegetarian and like fresh for stuff. So there was a lot of trial and error of like me going through all of his videos and trying to think of something that was actually achievable to where I wouldn't be so discouraged. But almost every time it was like, and then here's this twist that is very complicated and beyond what I think either I have the equipment for or truly like I didn't want it to be a disaster, even though this kind of ended up as a disaster. But so I went with the chocolate cake, and the video was cute. It was like for his own birthday, and the whole idea was like, it's this sheet cake that can feed like 50 to 70 people. So instantly I was like, I do not need to feed 50 to 70 people / Jeremy and I do not need to eat that much cake. So I did like a third of the recipe.
That can't possibly be what the yield is.
It seemed insane. But I was just like, whenever I'm making, it's just going to be for like the two of us. And so I just made it smaller.
You cut everything, all of the ingredients by 1/3.
Yes.
Okay.
So I just cut all of the ingredients by 1/3, which was pretty simple to do. There were a couple things that I substituted because one of the things was Dutch processed cocoa powder, and I read the difference, and it just has to do with like how they first kind of ground it up, and it's usually the Dutch process is a little darker, but it was 3 times as much money to buy the Dutch processed cocoa as it was to just have the regular.
What's the regular? Sorry.
Just unsweetened cocoa powder.
Okay.
Yeah, and I did go with Yeah, unsweetened. Like, the main thing was that it should be unsweetened. It was just like, he, and even in the video, was really into like, oh, it's the Dutch process, which just makes it a little bit darker. And then instead of vegetable oil, we had canola oil already, so I just used that. He used specifically demerara in his recipe, but you could also do granulated sugar, so I did granulated sugar. So that part like was all fine. Like, and it was like you put all the dry ingredients together, and then one of the other like different things was that you have malted milk powder.
What is malted milk powder?
So have you ever had like malted milk balls like at the movie theater or around like Easter and stuff?
Totally.
I've heard of them. Yeah, I didn't know that was a different...
Your Whoppers or your robin's eggs at Easter. And also they put malt powder in classic milkshakes a lot of the time. Malted milkshakes, they're called.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you get this?
For me, Meyer.
Oh.
I think it's usually kept in either like the milk aisle or where they have like chocolate milk powder, like Ovaltine or Nesquik and stuff like that. I got that, and I will admit that in mine, when I put it to a third, it was only like 1 tablespoon malted milk powder, and I just like, when I was pouring it in on the spoon, I just like let whatever extra go in, because I like the idea that it was the malted milk ball idea for the chocolate cake. It just, to me, it just gives it like a little extra oomph. Do all the dry ingredients together. I don't have a whisk right now, so I just use like an extra large fork, as you do. Then you do the like all the wet ingredients, and the way he did it is that like you kind of whisk all the wet ingredients together on top, and like, you know, especially like the eggs, and then once all the wet ingredients are in, then whisk it all together with all the dry ingredients. So everything was going really well, and then I realized my oven was not heating.
Uh-oh.
I'd set it to, because it was preheat to 350, and I'd set it preheat to 350 before I started everything, because that is one thing I have learned on this podcast, is not to just hit the oven and then put it straight in. Like, the preheating is important.
Yes.
I have learned things. And this is where it was a disaster, is I poured it into, I even had parchment paper this time, guys. I had actual parchment paper. Not
wax paper?
Not wax paper. I had actual parchment paper. I had like the Pam, and I did the butter Pam because that's just what I prefer to use for flavor. And like, I had the parchment paper, and I poured the stuff in, and then my oven wasn't heating. So I don't have a cake. I have a thing full of cake batter.
It's okay. It can go in the oven whenever. Well, so is your oven broken, or did it just not start preheating?
I don't know. I think it's more of a user error, and I think this is why I'm so upset. Is right before the podcast, because I texted Jeremy. I'm like, I don't understand. I can't get the oven to work. I won't heat. And right before the podcast started, he got back to me that he turned the gas off when we left for vacation.
Oh.
And so the gas is not on. I just feel really dumb that I didn't think to check the gas.
Jeremy didn't tell you that he turned the gas off. Did he make an appointment? Do you know when the gas is getting turned back on?
He has to like restart stuff. And I couldn't, like, I was on the phone with him. I couldn't reach it in that time. It was just a really upsetting, like,
it's
couple
okay.
of minutes.
Did you put your...
So I wasn't, the recipe called for a sheet pan, and I didn't have one, but I have a bunch of casserole dishes, so I was going to make it just in one of my cake, like, because I've done cake and stuff in there too. And it has a lid, so I have the cake batter. Everything is in the fridge so that it can bake. I'm sorry, it was just really upsetting, because I felt like I'd finally found something that was manageable, and then I literally could not get my oven to heat.
Well, don't explode your house would be the first thing I would say.
It's not you, Amanda. Your partner didn't tell you that he was turning off one of the major appliances and then didn't turn it back on right away.
I guess that's true. I did not think of it in that way. I just felt really stupid that I hadn't occurred to it, and then I couldn't reach it, and then I was messing things up more, and I just had to walk away and start.
Honestly, you were sabotaged.
Yes, baking sabotage.
Yeah.
Did you taste the batter?
The batter.
Did you give it a lick?
I did. I tasted the batter, and I used my measuring cups that you had gotten me, Justine, and I used my spatula, and I was really excited. And I licked that spatula clean. It tastes amazing, and I really do think the malted milk part of it is like, it's a really great flavor like enhancer, and it gives it something special.
Were you able to start your buttercream at all?
No. So I that was one of the things I was not going to do, the full buttercream, because again, even this recipe, it was like, I was like, okay, a buttercream, and then it was like, and then you have to caramelize the sugar on the stove and then pour it in to cook the eggs but not scramble the egg, and it terrified me. So I was just going to shortcut on the frosting and do store-bought buttercream because I was trying to not panic myself.
Honestly, also, with you doing this right before recording, I was kind of worried that you weren't giving yourself time for your cake to cool before frosting it. So now you'll have more time to bake and then cool it and then frost it.
That's true.
Yes.
That's true.
Yeah, everything will be okay. I don't know how long batter will last for, but you put it in the fridge. It sounds like it'll be easy to reconnect your oven. Your husband can do it probably later today. I'm sure the batter will still be good later the same day. And like Justine said, plenty of time to let it cool and then to ice it. I think this is no problem. I think that all your substitutions sound like good substitutions. And, I really feel like we've learned a lot from the Great British Baking Show, which is let your cake cool before you ice it. And, plenty of people have cried over cakes on the Great British Baking Show.
That's true. I'm just joining the annals of Jabibo and crying over cake.
In the grand tradition of Jabibo, yes.
Yeah. So once that's all settled, you can check in again. We can share those pictures of the final. Heck, people may even be seeing the final picture right now.
Yeah, quite possibly.
That's true.
Through the magic of podcasting and time.
So yeah, that was my whole 6 hours of a morning. Anyway, on to you, Justine. What did you make?
Okay, my turn. I made the vegan carnitas tacos with Guajillo Jam. To nobody's surprise.
The one and only vegan recipe of the season.
Yes, it was the safe choice. So basically, since the video, as we know, was pure entertainment, it was the 80s workout video, I didn't really need to rewatch it because you just head on over to the Food 52 website and he's basically reading from the website in the video. So I'm gonna share my picture. I did make it. I have a picture to share.
This is the one with the mushrooms, right?
Yes, and that's what I'll say it is. It's I wouldn't call it a vegan carnitas taco. It's a mushroom chickpea taco. Come on, Rick. It's a mushroom taco. Call it what it is. We don't need it to be vegan carnitas. I'm eating it. I'm yeah, that's a mushroom taco.
Ooh. I just realized I haven't eaten today, and this looks amazing.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Guajillo Jam looks good.
Oh, yeah. So we kind of discussed this recipe on the podcast, particularly in our digest episode. We kind of predicted that this would be sort of mediocre, and it was. I'm here to report, yes. The first problem, you're making the crispy chickpeas. Remember, you basically are sauteing everything just one at a time, and then salting it and putting it in a big bowl, and then stirring it all together. So you make these crispy chickpeas, you put them in the bowl, and then you start sauteing the mushrooms. And then you're instructed to transfer to the bowl with the chickpeas. So then you continue making more mushrooms. Can you guess what happens to the chickpeas when you put the mushrooms on top of them?
They get soggy.
They aren't crunchy.
Right. After a while, they're not crispy anymore.
Especially since mushrooms tend to sweat after you cook them or as you cook them. They release a lot of water.
Yes. And the only other flavors in this taco mixed in with the veg are the garlic and green onion, which honestly, there wasn't a lot of garlic in this. Let me see what it says in the thing. 4 garlic cloves for all that large munch. Nah, not enough. There's a lot of vegetables. It's a lot. 2 pounds of mushrooms.
What mushrooms did you end up using?
Okay, so I use shiitake, white, and cremini mushrooms. Just raided the old Trader Joe's. Most of them were already like pre-sliced, even though I just chopped them up a little more. Less effort that way. Pros, this recipe makes a lot. It says it feeds 4 to 6, but like 4 to 6 football players, basically. It's what it felt like. I was eating this for days.
It may not be that good, but at least there's a lot of it.
That's right. But let's talk about the Guajillo Jam. This was a surprise to me, and the part that I was like most hesitant about, because I'm like, oh no, lots of chilies. There's 4 ounces Guajillos. It was really good. It was also very sweet.
Oh.
Yeah, I noticed there's a lot of sugar in that recipe.
And orange juice, and it gets watered down a lot too.
Mm-hmm.
So while I was very fearful, and it in its like sort of raw state when you first blended it up, when you put your eyes over the blender, you're like, they're on fire. But like when you start really like watering it down and like cooking it down, that goes away. It was very much like making a sweet chutney, I would relate it to.
The jam definitely looks like the most interesting part of the recipe. Like, that sounds good to me on paper.
It definitely mellowed out. There was just like a little hit of like, ooh, on the back end, a little like, ooh, but it was really very sweet in it that you could just really like put that much on, glob all you want on, and then like eat it. And then you just really use it with anything. I've been throwing it on like regular roast veggies I've been making. I would recommend the jam. Make the jam. Put it on anything. Start canning. Like, it's a beautiful, wonderful thing. But I will say later on in the week, I also like roasted some broccoli and added it to these mushroom tacos and like added my own salsa to it. And so I just really sort of I was like, well, I'm just going to throw in other things in here because I'm just like lunch mushroom taco, dinner mushroom taco. Like, that's what it was like. I needed to change it up. And it did take a while. Like, literally every step you're sauteing takes like 15-ish minutes. It was not worth the effort. I was like, literally, I could just roast some vegetables. I could roast these mushrooms. I could just put it in the oven, step away, and not have to actively stand there and saute things for forever. The thing took me like 3 hours in total to make the jam and the tacos together. I know that it says take 2 hours, but I mean, I don't know. You're always going to take a little bit more time to like prep and all your stuff. But so at the end of the day, the 3 hours, I'm like, this is a mediocre taco for all that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Rick. I'm sorry.
At least the jam sounds good.
The jam sounds good. I do recommend the jam. I would say if you want a mushroom taco, go for it. But it took too long.
Sounds like you covered it. You said you'd make the jam again, but definitely not. I mean, I wouldn't spend 3 hours just cooking up some mushrooms and chickpeas. And like you said, just throw everything on a sheet pan. Chickpeas can get plenty crispy in the oven without any hands-on work.
Yeah, it's like literally, I wanted to make it sort of knowing that this would be the outcome. I just wanted to be confirmed since we were talking about it, that I'm like, I'm pretty sure this is going to be like, And it is. And
so you were right, but at what cost? Now you have to eat them for a week.
The crosses I bear for this podcast.
Sounds a little self-inflicted, TBH.
Yeah.
Did you have any jam left over that you used on other things?
Oh, yeah. Definitely have some still leftover jam. I actually had my friend Dan over the other night because I made something else, a chana, and I was like, do you want this Guajillo jam to put on top? And he's like, oh, let me try. And he's like, oh, yeah, this is delicious. And I was like, take as much as you want. Like, got this whole jar.
I'm seeing a through line of the recipes being too big in their yield. A little sneak peek for after the commercial break.
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
so glad I thirded my recipe.
All right, you've heard about Amanda and Justine's recipes. We're going to take a quick commercial break here. And when we come back, we'll find out what I and LJ made. It's gonna be juicy. All right, welcome back from that commercial break. I'm here to tell you about Rick's fried tomato sandwich with lemon basil sour cream.
I almost made this!
Yeah, for a while we wondered if literally all four of us were going to make the same recipe because we all seemed to be oohing and aahing over it when we watched the video.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let me share a couple of photos with you guys and also a quick video I made of making the recipe.
Once again, Meg, you just take the best food pictures.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, that's the stuff. I think we're all sexually attracted to this sandwich. Like,
I mean, as we said before, it's literal food porn. I'm not surprised that Rick was seducing those tomatoes.
Like, I don't even really like tomatoes and I want to eat this.
That is the power of the fried tomato sandwich. So to get into the recipe itself, there's basically, I would say, 4 major elements. There's the lemon basil sour cream, the chili oil, the fried tomato itself, and then the garnish is some fresh herbs and some sliced cucumber, which I think was a little bit glossed over in the video, but I think it's a pretty important element to have. The lemon basil sour cream is pretty straightforward. You whisk together mayonnaise, sour cream, lemon juice, and lemon zest, fresh basil leaves, chives, and salt and pepper. The only thing I would say about this part is that mine turned out a little bit runnier than I wanted it. I should have incorporated the lemon juice more slowly because I think maybe my lemon was just very juicy. I added a little bit of extra mayo to compensate, but it was getting to that point where it's like, well, I could add even more mayo and sour cream to make this thicker, but then I will have, way too much of the sour cream. So I just kind of stopped there. For the chili oil, you blend together dried arbol chilies, vegetable oil, and salt. That's it. It's just those 3 ingredients. I ended up using a food processor instead of a blender because I was like, I make my morning green smoothies in this blender, and I'm afraid that it's going to taste like spicy chilies forever and ever if I use this blender to make the chili oil. So I used my food processor instead. And it's interesting with the chilies because, Justine, your recipe also had the arbol chilies, but you said yours was very mild. And mine was super spicy. It was so spicy. Like,
ooh.
I feel like I have a very high spice tolerance for a white girl. and it was so hot. So I tried the oil on its own. It had a really nice flavor. The flavor of the chilies itself was interesting. Like, it had a little bit more nuance to it than I would say some other hot sauces I've had, but it was so hot. So I ended up just putting a little tiny drizzle on the sandwich.
Did you de-seed your chilies?
Not entirely. I cut off the stems and then I just kind of shook out whatever seeds would fall out naturally on their own. And then whatever was left, I put in the food processor. So yes, there were still seeds in the chilies.
So that's the thing. I meticulously de-seeded every single one of my chilies.
That probably made a big difference.
And there's a lot. There are a lot of... I was surprised. It was like a confetti party popper.
It truly was,
like
yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, seeing how many seeds...
I wish the listeners could see the size of your eyes when you describe how many seeds are in that chili.
I posted a picture on our stories, actually, of like all the remnants of the spicy bits I wasn't using, and it was like a full bowl. Like, oof.
I totally believe it because a lot of seeds came out of mine too, and I thought, surely that must be most of the seeds, but no, it was maybe half the seeds. So yeah, that's probably why mine was spicier in comparison. And then as for the tomatoes themselves, the big twist on this recipe is that everyone's familiar with fried green tomatoes. So Rick's twist is like, let's do fried red tomatoes. It's kind of funny because when I was shopping, I so had it in my head, green tomatoes. So I was looking and I was like, I can't find green tomatoes anywhere. How am I supposed to make this recipe? And then I was like, oh yeah, it's red tomatoes. I forgot. So I found this really beautiful, huge red heirloom tomato. I think I was able to get 4 nice steaks out of it. Giant tomato. It was delicious. So basically you slice up your tomato into your steaks, essentially. You dredge them in your egg and flour and panko mixture, and then you fry that. And then basically you just put it all together. So you put some of the lemon-basil sour cream on your sliced bread. I used sourdough. You add some cucumbers on top of that. You top it with your fried tomato and then any fresh herbs you have. I wanted to add fresh basil. That's one of the herbs the recipe suggests, but I had used all my basil in the sour cream, so I ended up just using some arugula, which I thought was a good substitution. It was tasty. You put some Parmesan cheese flakes, that's not the word, shaved Parmesan on the top of that. You drizzle your chili oil on that, and then you top it off with the last slice of bread. And in the video, as always, Rick made these sandwiches huge. And I think he added multiple slices of tomato in the video. But so I wasn't quite as generous because I was like, I would like to be able to fit my mouth around the sandwich. So I just added one slice of tomato per sandwich, which I think was fully adequate. And I did end up cutting this recipe in half. It says it makes 4 sandwiches, but it was just my husband and myself. So I cut it in half. I made half the mayo. I made half the chili oil. I had so much chili oil left over, which was sad because it was so spicy that I used barely any of it because it doesn't keep terribly long. I believe the recipe says that you can make the chili oil about a week ahead. It lasts about a week. It keeps for about a week. So keeping it for about that long, I used just the tiniest smidge of it. So I felt like that was a little bit wasteful, unfortunately. And if I were to make this recipe again, which I think I would because it was very tasty, I honestly think I'd just use some hot sauce I already have in the fridge, maybe some Cholula. But overall, that's the only really criticism I have of this sandwich. It was very refreshing. Even though it looks like a giant sandwich, you don't eat it and then feel bad. You feel pleasantly full. You don't feel like you've overeaten necessarily. I liked the addition of the fresh herbs, the fresh cucumber. You get a little bit of that nice, crisp, cool texture from the cucumbers matched with the warm, juicy, crunchy breaded tomatoes. There's a lot of texture going on here. There's a lot of differences between spiciness and a more cool feeling with the sour cream and the mayo. I just think this was a well thought out recipe with a lot of different elements that really complement each other. And I would like to make it again because when I made this, it wasn't quite peak tomato season yet. So I would love to make this with some beautiful summer tomatoes that are just at their prime. So yeah, that's the sandwich.
Question.
Yes.
Now, you own Andy Baragani's cookbook, the cook you want to be.
I do.
Have you seen his recipe for his garlicky tomato sandwich?
No, I have not, but tell me more.
One of the reasons why I didn't make this sandwich was because I actually just made Andy's tomato sandwich. But his is very different. Of course, it doesn't have the panko dredge, you know, tomato, but he does make a garlicky mayo spread as well, an herby spread. I didn't want to make this because I was like, and then I'll make just like another tomato sandwich.
Right.
But I still kind of do want to make this. But I would also have to source some like really good thick gluten-free bread, which is hard to find some good thick. There is. I know of a place I can get some. I would just really have to go out of my way to get some good stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like you can never have too many tomato sandwiches in your life.
Yeah, I think I will make this. I have a big box now from Sprouts of gluten-free breadcrumbs, like gluten-free panko, basically. I need to make something with it.
And Justine, now that you have reintroduced eggs into your diet, you could make the egg dredge.
That's true. I am now remembering that eggs go in things. I think that your sandwich looks impeccably delicious. I really want to eat it. Like, I really want to eat it.
I know, I'm getting hungry again now, too. I'm kind of proud of myself because I feel like I've really gotten the hang of pan frying over the last several months. I do most of my cooking with a pan that isn't non-stick, and I feel like that's been a real hurdle for me because it's hard to get things to not stick, especially when you're frying. And The only wisdom I would have to impart is to make sure your oil is really hot before you start. Like, if you're not sure whether your oil is hot enough, it probably isn't, and you should probably wait a little bit longer. But that's been my experience anyway.
What do you think of needing the spicy element, the heat to this sweet sandwich? Necessity or no?
Oh, I think the spicy is absolutely necessary. I would not call this sweet at all. As Rick says in the episode itself, that there's not a sweet element. They're just relying on the sweetness of the tomatoes. And it's like, yeah, sure, tomatoes are naturally sweet. I wouldn't classify this as a sweet dish. I do like spiciness in a lot of dishes, so I felt like the oil was a nice, necessary addition. I just probably wouldn't make the chili oil myself next time. I would just use a hot sauce of some variety.
Right, or like a grocery store chili oil that you're already familiar with.
Totally. I like spice, so definitely recommend the spicy element.
And I will say, the chili oil looks beautiful drizzled across that cheese and tomato.
I really wanted to put more on there, but it was just so spicy. Alrighty, well, we are going to tune in with LJ of the past. She has sent us a little audio recording of the recipe she made, as well as some photo supplement. So yeah, we're going to listen to that live-ish and react, find out how LJ's experience went. So everyone else, let's get ready to watch. Or listen, I mean.
Hi guys, sorry I can't be there today, but I just wanted to share with you what I made for our potluck episode for Sweet Heat season, mainly because I'm excited that I've actually been able to make something. I almost let the cat out of the bag when we were last recorded. In fact, I probably did, and you know what it is that I've made, but I made Rick Martinez's fried tomato sandwich with the lemon-basil sour cream.
Surprise, surprise.
And the kind of chili oil. Now, I loved this recipe. I'm just going to get all my cards out on the table straight away. We went to the farmer's market and I got myself 2 massive, juicy, gorgeous-looking, sumptuous, sexy,
oh my gosh,
plump tomatoes.
I'm blushing.
And I was very excited about them. Big beefsteak tomatoes, really great. And I just followed Rick's recipe pretty much as written. The only thing I didn't do was I cheated and I didn't make the chili oil from
yes,
scratch.
okay, we're on the same page.
And the main
Don't
reason
make
for
the
that
chili
was
oil from
because
scratch.
I knew lurking at the back of my cupboard, I had a bottle of chili oil that I bought from a store years ago and just never used and forgot it was there, to be honest. Now that I've found it, I'll probably put it on more things because it was really kicked this up a notch. But so I didn't make the chili oil, mainly because, as I think I've discussed on this show before, I can never find decent Mexican fresh ingredients. So I
check out our blog for LJ's Mexican food adventures.
I did as written. So the only thing I would say about the recipe is it is a faff. And I would say it's especially a faff if you're just kind of doing it for 1 or 2 people. And the reason for that is you buy a huge loaf of bread, you buy your, 1 or 2 big tomatoes, but those ingredients serve more than 2 people. So it feels like a waste.
We are so on the same wavelength.
To just do the amount for 2 people. But at the same time, doing it for like the 4 people as the recipe's written, it feels like there's a lot left over. And it takes a longer time as well. So I think the reason it feels like a long time is because you actually toast the bread in the skillet first.
Oh,
and
I
then
will
once
say
that's
something about
toasted,
the
you use
toast.
the
I'll wait
same
till she's
skillet
done,
to kind of fry up your breaded tomato slices. I think if I was going to do this again, and actually I have kind of subsequently done it again with the leftover tomatoes, is I would probably just put my bread under the broiler to toast.
That's all I was going to
them.
say. I just put mine in the
toaster.
toaster. I did not grill my bread.
And it would be just as good. Like, I didn't get much more from it being toasted on the skillet versus a broiler or as we would say in the UK, under the grill. or in a toaster. So I think that would be fine to do that. And then you save time because the bread can be toasting whilst you are dredging
I agree, past LJ.
your tomato slices and breading them up and getting them ready to fry. So I think that would save time. But genuinely, this sandwich blew my mind. I thought that it would be nice, but I wasn't prepared for how filling and satisfying it was, given it's just tomatoes and various accoutrements in a sandwich. But it's so, especially if you slice the bread kind of chunky, which I prefer to do because I like a hearty sandwich, it's so filling. I ambitiously made 2 sandwiches or tried to eat them. That was never going to work. I managed one and like a bite of the second. But what I have also discovered is that once you have breaded and fried all your tomatoes and you've got like your leftover lemon, basil, chive-y sort of sour cream, that keeps in the fridge. Yes, the breaded tomatoes do go kind of soggy, but I found what perks them right up is if you are remaking that sandwich for a leftover, when you've got your toasted bread either under the broiler or in the toaster, put your breaded soggy fridge tomato slices that have been fried previously back under the broiler with your bread or on their own if your bread's in the toaster, and they don't crisp up, but they warm through and they taste just as delicious in the sandwich with the toasted bread, and then you've got your sour cream and everything. Loved the sour cream, thought that was a delight. The lemon, it's very lemony, but it cuts right through the kind of crispy, greasy tomato situation, and also the kind of fatty and richness of the mayonnaise and the sour cream needs that acid, I think. And I loved the addition of the chili oil. It just gave it a real kick. So yeah, that was my adventure into cooking again. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thoroughly enjoyed eating tomato sandwiches all week, and I hope you enjoyed looking at the pictures. And I love you and I miss you, and I'm really sorry that I couldn't be recording today.
LJ.
Bye.
Aww.
It was like she was here with us.
It was like deja vu, really.
I know, right? She's apparently had a very similar experience as I did. She said that she thought it was a quite large yield for the recipe, that it was a faff to make for just 1 or 2 people. And something I didn't mention, but that she reminded me of, is that I did definitely have leftover of the mayo as well. So even cutting that in half, there was a lot of that. We had more tomato fillets or whatever, and then would fit into the 2 sandwiches. So my husband just ended up eating the extra on the side with the extra mayo. So this really does make a lot, even if you cut down the size of the recipe. I also agree about the bread being too much work, more work than you need to do to have the same result. I just threw my bread in the toaster. I did not grill it on the stovetop like the recipe called for. So yeah, I'm in complete agreement with LJ. And looking at her photos, they look beautiful. I see that her mayo is a little bit runny as well. That was pretty much the consistency of mine. So maybe that's just how the recipe is. In the video, it was a much firmer sauce than what the recipe actually produces.
Hers is, she's got her sandwich on a puddle on her plate.
Yeah, it is. It looks like all of the mayo fell out of the sandwich and just went on the plate.
If you follow the recipe, which it sounds like both of us did, that's kind of the result, is a rather runny sauce. I would have preferred it firmer.
Looking at the pictures, because my audio wouldn't work, one of the things I find fascinating is the British tomatoes to the American tomatoes.
They're so cute.
They are. They're like little, they got little pucker butts or something.
Little pucker butts.
That classic part
They
of
look
the
like
tomato.
peppers.
Oh, and also we're both team don't make the chili oil yourself.
This is so interesting because I feel like this has never happened in a potluck before, that we've come to like such similar conclusions.
Mm-hmm.
This makes too much. There's a lot of steps that I really don't want to do.
And that you don't have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of, well, this could just be something store-bought instead of having to go through all of the faff, as Elsie says.
Yes. I know, like, Rick in the video talked about, like, you know, treating yourself, even if you're just making it just for you, like, put that little extra into it. And I think we're all agreed. I'm like, we ain't got time for that, Rick. Sorry.
It does sound like, though, overall, there were at least elements of each of these recipes that we really enjoyed. I would definitely make the whole sandwich again. Sounds like LJ would and has. Justine, the jam sounded very tasty. That sounded like a good element of that dish. And we'll have to wait to see what the final cake tastes like, but if the batter is any indication.
Once I have a working oven again.
Sounds like that's going to do it for our potluck. And that closes the chapter on Sweet Heat with Rick Martinez. But I'm sure we will continue to watch his videos, continue to make his recipes. I know I will.
Yeah, I think you would like that jam. Please go ahead, make it. Let me know.
It's my jam.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the back burner. On today's back burner, we have a little Instagram post from a friend of the podcast, Kenji pez-Alt, in which he was commenting on a Reddit thread that got popular, which was entitled "The 4 Horsemen of Being a Shitty Cook." And the so-called 4 Horsemen of Being a Shitty Cook is pre-minced garlic in a jar, iodized salt, canned powdered Parmesan cheese, and those little plastic lemons full of lemon juice, pre-squeezed lemon juice. And Kenji had this to say: "On this Reddit thread, the only one of these 4 things being consistently trashed is the canned Parmesan, but it's the only one that I keep regularly at home." He later had a follow-up comment: "For those asking what I use canned parm for, 2 best uses. A, on New York style pizza, where I also use garlic powder and table salt instead of fresh garlic and kosher salt. And B, late at night by the warm glow of the refrigerator light, shaken straight into my hand and lapped up with my tongue like an anteater."
That's really nice.
Which I think we can all relate to. He also went on to say, "The irony in the number of comments here trashing and gatekeeping other people's cooking," yes, and he also says, "It's okay to cook with convenience ingredients, and it's okay not to." So do you guys have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with what he said, especially since a lot of these things are easy for folks who can't, let's say someone can't use a knife very well, like they have accessibility issues, like stuff that comes in cans and jars like this make their lives much easier.
Totally.
So there's that factor.
We call this sort of Parmesan cheese, my whole family calls it shaky cheese. And we always, like, honestly, it's one of the first things I think Jeremy and I bought when we moved into our house last summer, was like, so we had some shaky cheese. If we were making pasta or we wanted some on pizza, even if we order pizza or whatever, like, it's just, to me, that's just a standard thing. And I don't know. And the chopped minced garlic, I use that all the time. Even if I'm just like cooking, it's just an easy way for me to add in some flavor on stuff. I think the only thing that I currently don't have in my home is the lemon juice. But when I was a kid, we always had some of that in our fridge. Me, of all people, I'm going to say, yeah, use the stuff. Like, why, if it's there, why not use it? Especially, I think, for anybody who's at home and, you know, I don't have kids. And I can't imagine, like, a lot of people with kids who wouldn't use these to save time. Like, who has that time to freshly squeeze lemon juice if they just need a tablespoon for something? Or, you know, just a lot of stuff like that. I don't know. I'm kind of like, don't gatekeep. Just let people use stuff that is more convenient if they can. If it's easier for them, whether it's an accessibility issue or a time issue or whatever it is, why be upset or trash them for that?
Something we were just talking about earlier in this episode is that we all made convenience substitutions in our recipes. And I think it's definitely up to the person making the recipe what they deem they want to prioritize for convenience and what they want to prioritize in other aspects. So if you want to use any of these products, like please do. I've definitely used all these products. I think that sometimes I would think to myself like, oh, I'd rather spend the time mincing the garlic for this recipe for reasons A, B, and C. Like totally up to the person, up to the chef. I think that these are great products. The only thing I would say is that as also a amateur mixologist, I would really, really highly suggest that people use fresh juices when making cocktails, because for a cocktail, that's one of the main elements of your final product. So that's the only other thing I would add to the discourse.
I think that makes sense.
I wouldn't use this garlic if we're making that like garlic pasta dish from Chef where it's all like where it's the main feature.
And who hasn't eaten cheese out of their hand like an anteater?
What's wrong with the Parmesan can? I don't see anything wrong with it.
I
I've
like
never
the
had
Parmesan
fresh
can.
Parmesan.
Yeah, totally.
You think we're rich or something?
I was eating a block of cheese a couple weeks before we left on vacation, and he just keeps going, I can't believe you just were eating a block of cheese. You didn't slice it. And I was like, why would I dirty a knife? I was the only one eating the cheese. Who cares if I'm eating a block of cheese? And it has boggled his mind. But I'm like, eat cheese however you want to eat cheese.
I'm also a fan of eating shredded cheese over the sink. But who isn't?
Exactly. That's our core demographic right there.
We also have a couple of new cookbooks coming out soon on the back burner. The first one is What's for Dessert by Claire Saffitz. So this is her second cookbook coming out. And I think LJ said something before along the lines of, well, why don't you tell us, Claire? You're the dessert person. And also we have Giuseppe's Italian Bakes by Giuseppe, who is the winner of the 2021 Great British Bake Off. Giuseppe!
Yay! Giuseppe!
I think we're all excited for that one, although it might be complicated.
Yeah, I was going to say that too. We're talking about faff.
Moving on to shout-outs. We tweeted, I have literally never seen a recipe call for small eggs. And this came from my mind because I feel like asking for large eggs in a recipe is just a redundancy at this point. Have we ever encountered a recipe that didn't call for large eggs? Answer me that. But we had some people chime in. Megan Springer Chapa, Ad Astra 1930, Michael Gugino, and Emoji of a Lemon all had some egg thoughts, so thank you for chiming in. And then moving over to Instagram, Mary and also Lenny the Lizard at Who's a Good Lizard on Instagram said that they liked my gluten-free carrot cake. And Ravenel had a comment about our last episode. They said, so glad that Justine is adjusting her diet to her needs. I also second Meg that egg cookers are great, not only for managing egg doneness, but also for various egg dishes and just having a small general steamer. Co-signed.
That's so great. And I got a lot of, support like that. It was so lovely. I'm sure you guys could hear like how anxious I was.
No one called you out on being an egg eater?
No
Good.
hate.
I should hope
it was
not.
Wonderful.
And finally, thank you to G's in Cucina for leaving so many nice comments on our Instagram. Thanks for following us.
In Italian.
Yeah. If you are enjoying Pod Appétit, which we hope you are, it really helps us out if you leave a positive review. So if you've been listening and following along and enjoying us, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or really wherever you listen to podcasts, and we will read it right here and personally thank you. Also, we have merchandise. Go to podappetit.threadless.com and you can get the Pod Appétit logo on a shirt, on a mug, on a notebook, on a beach towel, on a tote bag. Yeah, show your Pod Appétit love. Oh, and also there's a ghost cake design that we all love.
I wore my ghost cake shirt and my Pod Appétit shirt all across the country when I went on vacation. So.
Oh, pics.
Repping across the country. Perfect. All right, and stay tuned for our next episode, which will be the first episode of our new season, in which we will be covering shrug emoji. It's a surprise for everyone, so stay tuned. We'll find out.
Bye. Thanks for listening to Pod Appétit Gourmet Takes.
We'd love to hear from you, so find us on Twitter and Instagram at pod_appétit.
And on Facebook at Pod Appétit Podcast.
You can also email us at podappetitpodcast@gmail.com and find all of our episodes on our website, podappetitpodcast.com.
Hey, this is Kate. I'm a forensic psychologist and crisis clinician, and I collect stories. Everything from true crime to trauma to parenthood. There's a lot more in common between depression and sociopathy, or between serial killers and podcasters, than you might think. Are you sure you really want to know? This is Ignorance Was Bliss at iwbpodcast.com and IWB Podcast on social media.